Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The largest networking organization in this city. Houston Young Professionals. Woo! But you know what? They're letting other people come in. That's how you got to be to 24,000 strong, which is great because networking is how things get done today. You face a problem in your personal life, in your social life, in your professional life, there's probably somebody out there that's already gone through that, right? And so through networking, through organizations like this, meetings like this, I know you don't meet face to face very often because you're all one of these. You're much younger than myself. So I'm very, very grateful for your attention today. I think it's really important to know that we as workers today, a lot of times we get put into this team building situation. We're either on projects that are time limited. We may be part of a team that has folks coming in and out of it. But there are 5 rows to hoe in building a team. Now, someone was scoffing at my title. And I knew they had to be very young and had never rode a hoe in their whole life. That's a farming analogy, by the way. To plant the field, you have to create the path for the seeds to be planted in. That's called a row. But a field is a field, and rows have to be created. You have to hoe the row. The same way with team building. There are certain things that you have to do to put a team together so that it becomes effective and efficient. There's been a lot of writing. I know I'm a leadership junkie. I've been in management myself. I was a paralegal with Fulbright Jaworski. I've been a private investigator. I've worked for myself. Now I find myself in a situation where I write procedures and policies all day long. Very exciting. And where some networking comes in handy. How did you all do that harassment thing? But when you're putting a team together, there's so much information out there. I know a lot of people know about Deming. A lot of people know. My favorite is another person that went to Japan to study back in the 60s and 70s, and that's Peter Drucker. I really prefer him. He's the one that said not only efficient, but he also talked about being effective in your processes. But today I want to take you back to 1965, before the Summer of Love. But a psychologist by the name of Bruce Tuckman put together a system just by observing small groups and how they come together, teams, and how they're constructed. And it's called the forming, storming, norming, performing, and then the 5th is adjourning or transitioning method of forming teams. Again, this is something that is not current in literature. I know everyone's talking about scrums, or they're listening to Semic, or they're going through all these contemporary writings. But I think this simple idea of not really compartmentalizing, but looking at the process a small group or a team goes through and putting itself together is very effective. We're going to define them right now. First of all, forming. Whenever you're invited into a group, and this applies not only to our work lives, but to our personal lives, right? We have our kids in Scouts. We want them to get involved with that. We have things in our faith life, perhaps, even in our neighborhoods. When you go to the HOA meetings, there's a small group, a little team running that. And we can watch these teams and how they come together. Now, the first thing that happens when you join a team is what? Everyone's so polite. Everyone's nice to each other because they may not know each other. They may not know preferences, biases, that type of thing. So we come together and we put our best behavior forward because we want everyone to like us. Because inherently, I think people want to do a good job. So as a leader of a team, you have to watch that interaction. You will see being nice to each other. Well, as soon as some assignments start being made, and some expectations, and some accountability to what's going on in the team starts to happen, we move to the next phase. Storming. I don't like that idea. Someone gets crossways with somebody else on the team because what I understood in my assignment, I was supposed to do that. That wasn't the way the leader told us to do that. This cross communication comes in, people's tempers show up, people's egos get involved, and all of a sudden, these really nice, polite people trying to figure out what their roles are just becomes chaos. Can become chaos. The reason I want to share this with you is because you will see this. You will see this happen, and if you know that it's inevitably going to happen, then you recognize it when it happens. And when we can recognize something before it happens and be prepared, we can control it a lot better as leaders, right? And I'm speaking to you as if you are leaders today. We have forming, we're putting the team together. Storming, where people start getting a little crossways with each other. And finally, we have norming. Out of the storming comes the norms of the group. How we will behave. How will we communicate with each other. What happens when this person and this person find out they've been working on the same assignment and it's going in different directions? You start shaping the work of the group. You start shaping everyone's expectations of each other. And let's face it, that's all relationships are, right? Expectations. If you do what I expect you to do, I like you. If you don't do what I expect you to do, I'm going, well, what's wrong with this person? So expectations play a really big role in how we behave with each other. But we get to this norming stage. So the normality of how we operate, how we're going to move forward in the assignment, in the project, comes into being. And that's when the work really starts to happen. As a matter of fact, Tuckman even says some groups never get out of storming because they just can't get past their differences to get to norming. But norming is where we really are defined. We understand the goal, where we're going, and then we get to performing. You've heard of high performance groups, high performing teams. The New England Patriots is probably a good example. They've been more than successful in their careers and just controlling everything that happens. I mean, it's like if the Patriots aren't in the Super Bowl, why are they having it? I mean, they're almost that dominant. That's a high-performing team. The guards and the tackles all know where they're going when the play is called. There's no surprises, which if you're on an opposition team, you would think, well, I know this guy's going to do this, but I still have to beat him. That's a high-performing team. So we've formed the team, we've gone through the unrest period, we've found our norms, now we're performing. We're doing what we were expected to do until we don't. And that's the fifth row that we hope. That's called the adjourning or transitioning part of the process. Sometimes a project comes to the end. Comes to the end of itself. It has accomplished everything it was meant to accomplish. It might be a process that's being plugged into something larger. So the team might not adjourn, but it might transition. It might go into another phase of the bigger picture, depending on how effective they were working together, I suppose, or how big the total project is. But sometimes when groups, they come to the end of their goal. For example, if you're having a special event like this, the people that put this conference together for you all to come to one place at one time, or as many of you as could, put in a lot of hours and a lot of work, and I'm sure there was a very detailed project plan, several scrums, several things, people going in many directions to get this all to happen. once the last gavel is sounded or the meeting is adjourned, that team doesn't exist anymore, doesn't have a reason to exist anymore. And that's what Tuckman calls adjourning. Well, let's talk through this. Let's apply some real life experience to what it means to form a small group or a team. I know we've all been on them. We've all been in that place where maybe we're the new hire. We may be injected into a brand new project. I have a friend that happened to him. He got hired at a place and they were fixing to do a global project that was going to be sent out all over the world. They had a little beta group that they were going to work with. And he didn't know anything about the company. He didn't know any people in the company. He only knew what he knew in terms of his skill sets. And his boss obviously didn't know his skill sets that well either. Well, here we walk into this room with people that we don't know. How do we act? What do we think? What do we expect? Are we vulnerable? Are we going to reach out to some of these people and find out what they're about? Are we the extrovert that wants dope on everybody in the room so they have control over these relationships? All of these things are going on during the formation of a team. And again, the reason I'm sharing this with you today is so that you will recognize it. Because when you recognize it, then you can find where you are comfortable within the team and make yourself successful. But you're first coming into the team, you're going to just look around, survey the landscape, and figure out where you fit. So always be open to that. Don't be afraid to go into a new situation. It may be something you may not even like the project, but if you like the people, you'll be able to get through the process. So that's forming. Then we get to that day. We get to that day when everybody has a different idea. You ever been there? Ever been on a project where, well, we really needed to have this done before we did this step, and a couple of other people in the team have fast forwarded and they're out of sync now with the rest of the team? What would you do as a leader? Think about what you would do as the leader of a team that's in the middle of storming. Because the thing to remember about storming, this is where the team gets stronger. Once all the disagreements are out of the way, there's no reason to not move on to norming. So as a leader, if you see your team start storming, count it as a good day and just manage the egos, manage the process. Don't be afraid of this phase called storming. And don't let it stall out your project if you're the leader. You may need to replace someone in this phase. Maybe they're not going to be a good fit. So storming, while it's kind of scary to think about, it's a very important part of the process. It's a very important row to hoe, because once you get down that row, the rest of the rows will probably fall in line. Which leads us to norming. Why is norming so important? Well, obviously it's where we've set all the ground rules, everybody knows the expectations, and everyone can come together and start doing their part to make the process work. The other thing to remember is the leader of a group, a small group that's going through this phase, is that this is where you can inject new people into the process. And that's all they're gonna know. They're only gonna know the norming of the group. They weren't there for the forming. They weren't there for the storming. They're only seeing a functioning group that's gone through these difficult times. And as a manager, that's really good for you, because now you can plug them in and there'll be someone for them to connect with, and they already know the norms of the group and they're going to move on forward. Which leads us then, if we are the leader of this performing group, how do we know we've reached performing? What are the criteria? What do you think a performing group would look like? A performing group could fail. It could fail. If you're the leader of a group, you've gone through all these phases, you've done everything that the project creators expected, but you don't come out with a favorable outcome, that doesn't mean you failed as a group, does it? Doesn't mean that at all. It means there's an error somewhere else in the suppositions or the thoughts or the patterns of what the project was about. But if you've not gotten your team to get to at least the norming stage and start performing, you don't know if you're going to be successful or not. And as a leader, we always want to be successful. We want everything to work out. We want our teams to come together to go through these phases, and we recognize when they're in these phases. But at the same time, if the project, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If the plane won't fly, the plane won't fly. If the rotor won't row the hoe, well, it won't row the hoe. That's just all you can say. But at least you know it's not because of the people coming to a place of performance. And then that might very well lead to the adjournment, right? The adjourning of a team because the project wasn't successful for whatever reason, but it's not the group's fault. It's because something else was wrong with the plan. Again, I wanted to share this with you as young professionals because you're going to find yourselves in these situations. They don't teach you this stuff in college. You can take all the psychology classes, all the interpersonal communication classes you want, but until you actually get in a room of people who think they know what they know, they don't know what they don't know, and they're not vulnerable, they're not willing to go through these phases and see them for what they are. This is something I'm trying to equip you with today, so that when you get to that place, you won't be freaked out. You'll know, oh, we're just going through the storming phase, or we're still in the forming phase. So I want to wish you all well. I'm very proud to be here today to talk to you about these 5 rows to hoe and building a team. And I hope you're not still snickering about that because it's, again, a farming analogy that you don't hear very often. My grandmother used to say it all, that's a long row to hoe if something's really difficult. These things are not difficult, but again, if you recognize what's going on, you're going to be more effective in how you respond to the situation. I wish you all the best in your future careers, and I thank you for your time today.